Okay, so in the previous tutorial, we looked at how to create a basic character, right? So we're going to go back to one of our original prompts. We're just going to take businessman, hands on hip prompt. Right? That was, I think, our starter. So we're just going to start with that. Let's come back here. So do that. Oops, I need to do my prompt first. So let's go ahead and create a character. So you're going to create 5 characters that look like they're the same character. Real easy this way. Is it perfect? No, but it's perfect enough. One of the things you'll notice as we work with the characters, they're not going to be exactly the same. That's okay. We're not doing a bunch of prompting. We're not playing around in the tools forever, right? We're looking at like quickly getting something viable. They're going to be good enough to use. And if they're not on the same screen, when you transition from one to the next, people aren't going to notice it's not the same character. So we've got our character generating here. So here's our character. Let's say we really like this one right here, right? So I've got this character here. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to upscale this one character. So that's character number 2. So I'm going to upscale that character. I'm also going to create some derivatives of that character. So I've got that character, and then I'm going to have derivatives. So I'm basically creating that same character, but 4 different versions of that. Another thing you can do is you'll notice, like once you have a character you like, you can vary that character, have it redone and vary it and do a strong variance, or you can do a subtle variance. If you do the subtle variance, you get something that looks pretty close. Let's go ahead and do the strong, and then we'll also do the subtle just to see what the difference is on that. All right, so when we look at it, this was the character. Here's the strong derivative of that character. This actually all looks like the same character, right? I mean, obviously the styling's a little bit different. And then here's the subtle one, and that looks pretty close too. And again, if I had this character on slide 1 and then I had this character on slide 3, they're probably close enough nobody would notice, right? But these are just variations on that character. What we also did is we took this character and we did a variation on it. So this is our upscaled character. And then this right here is our, I guess this was our, right? I don't know how I ended up with multiples. So I know with multiple strongs, but maybe they were all strong variations. Here, let's go ahead. This is our character we did here. This was V2. Maybe I complicated that. We're going to start from scratch here. We're going to take that one here where he's pointing. So we like this character here. We're going to upscale 3, and then we're going to do version 3. Let's see what happens. So there's our upscaled character, and then we should get a version 3. I don't know why it did a strong change on that, but we'll get that same character and we'll get a different version. All right, so now when I look at this is my base character, and then here's that same character in different versions. This character looks close enough to be the same character, and I think that's the key. It's viable, right? Now, if you want to get kind of tricky, you can go into Photoshop, for example, and you could say, well, I like this head. Obviously, don't like those hands. But I like this head. I could copy this head and then just paste it on all of the other characters, and it'll look like the same character. One of the things when you're looking at the characters, a good example, the hands get screwed up. Sometimes the faces get screwed up, right? So, and you'd have to look at that. Like this only has 3 fingers here, unless the thumb is behind it, there's 4 fingers, right? You can live with that, or you can try to change it. Sometimes what I'll do is, like, this hand is messed up, but if I liked this character, I see that this hand is much more viable. I could copy this hand and paste it over there, or if I find like this hand and paste it over there. One of the things I do when I'm editing is I vectorize these, so the vectorization ends up fixing some of these oddities. But anyway, these characters, when we look at them, they're okay, right? So if I think about it, I have 5 characters now. So I have this character right here, and then I have these 4 characters. So I would download these. So what I would do is, if I'm using Midjourney, I've upscaled this one. I'd go 1, 2, 3, and 4. Where's my other one here? And 4. And then I get single images for each one of those characters. And then I go through the process of cleaning them out. You'll notice, I guess it does look like the default setting is strong variations. So that's where I could maybe get something that's a little bit more consistent. So I'm going to go into settings, and we're going to change that so the variations are high variation mode. Let's just go low variation mode so that it's not going to get as many changes, I guess. So let's go ahead, and we're going to do a whole new character. Let's go imagine. Actually, let's just take this here. We're going to build this character out. Okay, we do our prompt, and let's just go with Black business woman, and we'll do arms crossed. Let's just do the arms crossed, and we'll say confused. So maybe you're explaining something to her that makes no sense, and so then that's our object right here. So now we're going to get this character drawn, and then we're going to do the same thing. We're going to do a variation of the character, but we should get something that's a little bit more subtle. All right, so here's our character. One thing you'll notice with the character is that the arms crossed cut off the legs. What happens is, from what I understand with the way AI works, is like when I put Black businesswoman here, that's your kind of the primary. Then I do arms crossed. They almost become like 50-50, right? So I have 2 objects. I have businesswoman, I have arms. And so then what happens is the arms and businesswoman, they become kind of, in their weighting, become somewhat equal. And so I think what happens is it puts a lot more focus on the arms. So that's something to play around with. This is where you might be able to fix it by putting arms crossed, white shoes, brown pants, something like that. And then it kind of puts the focus on that. It has to create that, and then it extends that character. Let's go ahead and do that because I want a whole character. So this is, again, a good learning experience of like, okay, how do I get a whole character in here? So we're going to do the prompt. And we do Black business on arms crossed. We're going to de-emphasize that. We're going to say black shoes, casual attire, arms crossed. All right, so let's see what we get now. All right, now we've got a pretty good set of characters, and they kind of mostly met, kind of business, casual, black shoes, arms crossed, confused. So let's see what expressions we get. So these aren't bad characters, right? I could use these in a course. You do get some wonkiness. Like here's a good example of that wonkiness, right? Like what's going on with her arms there. You could probably in Photoshop, if you figured this out, maybe fix this, like, cover her arm up here. Her face turned out pretty good. This one looks pretty good, right? This one looks pretty good. This one looks good too. Again, the hands are a little bit weird, but I can work with that. The eyes do start to get a little bit weird on some of these when you get in close. Like this one, the eyes start to mess up, but you can fix all of that. And then this is kind of weird too because you actually have another arm in here, but you could probably clean that, colorize it, and then it wouldn't, if you made this all this solid color, you wouldn't even notice that. But that's part of the editing process. But let's say we like this, right? We're going to go back. So we'll take this one's, I think, the only character that's not messed up. So we're going to go ahead and take this character here. And I like this character, so that's number 2. So I'm going to upscale her. So I've got that character. Now I'm going to do the version of that character. Now when I do another iteration of version, we set it to do minimal, so it should be pretty close to her. And we're going to do that. And then I should have 4 more characters that look like that character. All right, so now when we look at that character, this is my base character, if I look at this character, that looks pretty close. Like if I had this character in a course, you're not seeing all 4 of them at the same time. They look close enough. Now when we look at the editing options here, let's open that in a browser. When we look at the editing options, the faces are pretty close, but when you get to a point where you're going to clean these up and edit them, you could probably take the faces and make them all the same face. So this way, like, I think these 3 work. This face is very distinctly different. I think the mouth and stuff, everything's a little bit more narrow. But if you copied, like you could copy the nose and mouth and then paste it here, paste it here, paste it there, and you'd have the same, you'd have generally the same character. But you got a few different poses, with her arms. And how she's looking. Now this is why, like if I go back to this character, if I wanted a character with a little bit more variety, we're going to go ahead and copy this here. If I want a character with more variety with some options, since I don't need 5 pictures of her with her arms crossed, that's where I like using the word gesturing. So I take arms crossed out and I can use gesturing. And gesturing can be anything, and so it does give you often different poses. All right, so now I have 4 poses. I did gesturing. You can see I get different hands and stuff. I'm going to take this character. This one looks the most complete to me. I like her hands. And again, if you get a character and you get nice hands, then you could replace it. You could take that and put it here, right? So you could fix some of these weird issues you get, but this one looks fine to me. We'll assume that's the one we're going to use. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead, and that's number 2. We're going to upscale her, and then what we're going to do is we're going to make 4 more versions of her. But since we have the styling set to minimum, it should be pretty close to that, and maybe we'll get some different poses. Looks like we might be getting the same poses, but that's okay. You get the general idea. It's really just about changing up the actions and then finding one where you get multiple poses. Plus, the next tutorial I show you how to actually get more poses, but we're gonna stick with that. So now what I have here is I have this character here. We're gonna upscale these. These all look pretty close, right? A little bit different, but you could change faces and or maybe cut and paste those. But if you use them in different slides, you probably wouldn't notice that they were different characters. So that's the main way to get, like, say, 5 characters that are somewhat similar. If you play around with the action, get rid of confused, different things like that, you can get different type of styles on there. And then once you've got them all done, like this case, we would just upscale them. And then what you'll get from your tool is 4 images that you can download. And then I'll talk about the editing process in a following tutorial. But once you've got images to work with, then there's a minor cleanup process to that. Hopefully that helps you out. In the next tutorial, what we'll do is look at how to get multiple poses of the same character.